Click and laugh. Click and laugh.
You're already live, dude. You're messing with your hair.
Oh, okay.
I think we're live.
No, I just want to. I'm currently recording a how to make your hair tutorial.
How to do a hair bun?
Yeah, yeah. What's up?
Pretty manly. Don't let Pearl see that. She'll be like, I don't think men should have hair buns. This is why Islam is based. No, she was cool. She was nice.
Well, why are you mocking Pearl? Why are you
No,
mocking her?
no, I'm not. I'm mocking you. I'm mocking you. I'm
Yeah.
saying anyone that is even slightly red pill would have a problem with a man bun. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
I can't even speak. My hair's growing out. So my wife
Yeah.
wanted to see me with longer hair. She thinks I'm going to look like Fabio. She doesn't realize not going to happen. That's never going to happen. But you got to prove people wrong at some point.
You do.
All right. So what are we talking about? Muslim explains the miracle of the Quran's eloquence. Have you heard of this before, AP?
Oh yes, absolutely. Well, the Quran is, of course, incredibly eloquent and very eloquent, miraculously so. And I think our dear friend Farid is going to demonstrate to us in a wonderful video very easily that it is, of course, incredibly eloquent, miraculously so. Because if it is eloquent, miraculously so, then it cannot be very hard to demonstrate that in a very plain and amazing way. So we are going to witness that, and everybody is going to convert to Islam tonight. Yep.
Yeah, we are going to see it, and I mean, his video is like 12 minutes long, so I assume we're going to look. Look at the entire video. By the way, little side note: even though Farid just tried, I haven't watched his new video, but he called us like on the thumbnail. He calls us Apus and Dpus, and it's funny because it's like, wait a minute. Farid knows what Surah 6, verse 108 of the Quran says, that you're not supposed to start insulting people who are instantly going to start insulting your religion in return. He knows we're the two champions of that, right? I mean, we're the guys like leading the charge, and hey, we'll be nice. Don't insult. No insults, and we won't insult back. And then they just can't start. They can't stop with the insults. Like, he knows we'll go instantly after Muhammad as soon as he insults, and they do it anyway. Really looks like deep down they want us to insult Muhammad.
I mean, he should be aware of this, right? Farid should be aware of all of this. He should be aware of what we have said about this in the past. He should be aware of how I have expressed on my community tab and tweets and videos saying, hey, if you feel the freedom to to call us names and to do this stuff, to give us these nicknames, I don't take that much offense, but you should count on the fact that I will respond and I will call you a prophet, Mopus, or do other things.
And they obviously want us doing that because they keep saying it.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh, actually, Black Angel here said she saw the video that we're about to watch. So Black Angel said, saw Farid's video. It amazes me what he finds miraculous and eloquent. Yeah, that amazes me too. What I did want to say was, I don't know, Farid's kind of growing on me in terms of liking this guy, in spite of the insults, in spite of the uncalled for insults that he throws our way. But like, for a while, all I really knew about him was a couple of clips in which, I don't know, he's sounding really condescending when he's talking. And I'm thinking, given the stupidity of what you're saying, you should not be sounding this arrogant. And then, of course, the infamous tweet. What was it?
How is it child rape when there is parental consent?
Oh yeah, so yeah, if you go snatch up a 6-year-old and have sex with her and she has no clue what's going on, it's not rape because her dad said you could go ahead and do it. So dad says, yeah, go ahead, bone my daughter. It's not rape according to Farid. So anyway, so that was my impression of him. But I have to say, I don't know how long he's been doing this, but we've seen that he's been playing our videos in live streams, but like actually going through the content and discussing it with his followers. And this just seems very different from most of the Dawah guys they don't seem to have any intention of actually answering or responding to an objection. It's always try to discredit the person who's giving the objection, right? So,
Yeah.
you raise an argument against Islam, they don't think they have to respond to your argument or show why your argument is wrong. They simply say, here's why you shouldn't listen to that person, or this person is fool, or this person is stupid, or this person is evil, or this person is wicked. But it's not, hey, here's why the argument is wrong. Whereas Farid, even though he's including, hey, these guys are evil and these guys are bad and so on, he's still trying to respond to the actual things we're saying. And as far as I'm concerned, that makes him like light years ahead of most of the Dawah guys and most of their followers.
He is in that regard different, and I noticed that from the very beginning when he started making response videos to me, and he also told his own audience stuff like that the whole excuse of not giving people platforms, of not exposing Muslims to people like us, is a bad excuse because we will grow and we will be there regardless of what Muslims do, but it is their obligation to respond to us. So I thought, hey, that's good. I keep doing that, and everybody should be doing that. That said, that also inadvertently leads to displaying how terrible he is at understanding very basic, very simple arguments and very simple problems, and how terrible he is in offering solutions to those problems that we have. And I bet we will see that. I didn't even watch the video that we're going to watch, but I bet we will see that today as well.
Well, you're in for a treat. You're in for a powerful treat. So, so we're going to discuss the infamous argument from literary excellence, is what I call this. They might call it a literary miracle or whatever. But the argument is that the Quran is so masterfully written that no one can write something like it, and therefore it's from God. So I know you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
Before we actually go through the video, let's look at the Quran. Let's go ahead and look at what the Quran says. Let me see if I can get all these verses up. So these are the Quran verses, which are the basis for, and I have to say, this seems to be like the main, like the biggest argument from the Quran. It's weird that the biggest arguments from the Quran are not the ones that are the most favored by Muslims today. The main arguments from the Quran are the argument from literary excellence. There's also this odd one of, you should believe in, Christians and Jews should believe in Muhammad because he's affirming the scriptures that you have. Mm-hmm. And Muslims can't use that because they say Muhammad's not affirming the scriptures that we have. And so they can't even use that, even though that's one of the main arguments that the Quran uses. Muhammad is affirming your scriptures, the scriptures that are in your possession. Therefore, you should affirm him in return, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like Mirza Ghulam Ahmed is affirming the Quran. Therefore, you should affirm Mirza Ghulam Ahmed. No Muslim would accept that who doesn't already believe in Mirza Ghulam Ahmed. And yet it's the exact same reasoning that Muhammad brings. So Let me see if I can get these Quran verses. I don't know why I'm not having any tech problems as far as tech stuff. I'm having problems with my brain operating tech stuff today. You see? The power of Allah.
This is Allah. Allah is punishing you. This is what happens when you criticize Islam.
This is what happens when you challenge my servant Farid. All right. So these are the verses in the M.H. Shakir translation. You can pick any translation you like. Surah 2, verse 23 to 24. And AP, jump in anytime you have any comments with any of this, or anytime you want to pause or anything.
Okay.
23 to 24. And if you are in doubt, it's weird that the Council of Nicaea didn't take this out. And if you are in doubt as to that which we have revealed to our servant, then produce a chapter like it, and call on your witnesses besides Allah, if you are truthful. But if you do it not, and never shall you do it, then be on your guard against the fire, of which men and stones are the fuel. It is prepared for the unbelievers. So what do we have here? We have, if you are in doubt as to that which we have revealed to our servant, so revealed to Muhammad, if you doubt that, which we do, then produce a chapter like it. So notice, this is a challenge for non-Muslims. If you don't think that Muhammad is a true prophet, then produce a chapter like it, and call on your witnesses besides Allah if you're truthful. But as soon as you produce a chapter like it, and many people have, suddenly, it doesn't matter if you call on your witnesses, Muslims make themselves the judges, and they say, no, it's not as good. And so that's the stupidity of this.
Yeah, yeah. What's very funny is I pointed out this out in my video when I made a video about this whole challenge here. Um, Muslims should not be afraid of taking taking the challenge themselves, because if you are a faithful, honest Muslim, then it is expected of you to believe that nobody can actually write something like the Quran, and you must have full faith in that. Like, Allah is telling you the truth, and He's obviously telling you that nobody can ever produce something like this. So instead of challenging others, a Muslim should not be afraid of taking the challenge himself, and actually try to write something better, because and then to test it, to show it to others, and to compare it and to see if it's better or not, right?
Are you grinning because of what you're saying or because of the comment?
Both.
Where's the chapter of Uthman's fire?
That's logic. Yeah.
That's what's amazing. If someone were claiming to be an ex-Muslim who converted to Christianity, and he starts talking about the chapter of Uthman's fire, you'd be like, they would say, this is a reason you should never, ever, ever listen to this guy. And yet you've got this guy. I grew up as a Catholic. And then the book of the Council of Nicaea, which was taken out of the Bible. Muslims, oh, alhamdulillah, so wise, so knowledgeable. Tell us more.
I mean, yeah, you have seen Ali Dawah. He was basically testing me and trying to trap me with every surah in the Quran starts with Bismillah, right? And I said, no, yeah, every surah except Surah Tawbah. And he was like, okay. But he was trying to trap me with that.
Absolutely.
And use that to declare me a fake ex-Muslim. But they find it sneaky.
Yeah, notice it would have been very easy, because, we know that, but it would have been very easy to not be paying careful attention to what he's saying and then just go, yeah. It would have been easy for someone who, if you sit back and think, no, there is Surah 9 doesn't begin with that, unless you go to the Sana palimpsest, and then it does begin with that, but it's taken out at some point. But it would be very easy, even for someone who knows it, just as someone's going, yeah, because blah, 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 and go, yeah. It would have been very easy to do that. And yet, if you had simply said yes and made one small mistake about one verse in the Quran, that would have been eternally used to say you should never trust this guy. And yet Ali Dawah, I mean, we've gone through multiple videos where he doesn't make one single correct claim about anything. Yeah. And he's like the most popular da'i on the planet, as far as I can tell. And that's there's no concept of consistency here. All right, so let's take a look at some more of these passages here. So we've got there Surah 2, verse 23 and 24. Guys, you should jot these down so you can be familiar with these if you're interested in responding to this argument, which again is one of the main arguments of the Quran. But notice verse 24, if you do not do it, in other words, if you don't make something like it, and never shall you do it, then be on your guard against the fire of which men and stones are the fuel. So if you can't write something like the Quran, then be ready for hell. And they don't understand how stupid this is. Guys, write something like Romeo and Juliet or be ready for hell. Write something like Eminem's Rap God or be on guard for hell. No one understands what in the world you're talking about. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Chapter 10, verses 37 to 38. And this Quran is not such as could be forged by those besides Allah, but it is a verification of that which is before it. And a clear explanation of the book. So the Quran, notice you've got both of the main arguments here together. This could not be forged by someone by Allah. It is a verification of that which is before it. Before it there, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is baina yadehi, which means in its hands or between its hands or in its presence. And this means that it's affirming the books that still exist. It's affirming the book that still exists. So this is affirming scriptures that were still in existence during its time. It's not saying, oh yeah, these are books that were corrupted centuries ago. These books are still there, and the Quran is affirming it. Do Muslims believe that? No. So you don't believe this verse. Why do you believe part of this verse and not the other? And 1038, or do they say he has forged it? Say, then bring a chapter like this and invite whom you can besides Allah if you are truthful. 1113 to 14, or do they say he has forged it? Say, then bring 10 forged chapters. Interesting how the challenge changes. Then bring 10 forged chapters like it and call upon whom you can besides Allah if you are truthful. But if they do not answer you, then know that it is revealed by Allah's knowledge and that there is no God but he. Will you then submit? Guys, pay attention to how absurd this is.
Great logic.
Yeah. Bring 10 chapters like this book. Oh, yeah. And you can call on your witnesses, but my followers are actually going to judge the contest. And if you can't, then you know that it's revealed by Allah's knowledge. So if anyone comes up to you with anything, any book, any poetry, any music, and says, make something like this, and you can't, then you know that what that person brought you is revealed by God. That's what the Quran is saying right here. This is the stupidest argument. I mean, my goodness. How Muslims tell us. I mean, take AP's advice. Try to. There are two things here. One, actually try to meet the challenge. So Muslims who, especially Arabic speakers, Muslims, sit down and try to write something like the Quran. I guarantee you could do it. If you can, if you are second grade or better. You can do this. Hey, matter of fact, let's be generous and say 7th grade or better. Maybe that's why the Taliban won't let girls go to school beyond 6th grade. They know they'll be able to do this.
That actually makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yep,
It would spread fitna. Yeah.
Spread fitna. They will see the problems here. 1788, say, if men and jinn should combine together to bring the like of this Quran, they could not bring the like of it, though some of them were aiders of others. That was refuted with the satanic verses, where Satan brought verses that the Muslims and Muhammad himself thought were from God. So even Muhammad and his followers could not tell the difference between verses brought by a jinn and verses brought by the angel Gabriel. So that this verse was refuted by the satanic verses. And then finally, Surah 52, 33 to 34, or do they say he has forged it? Nay, they do not believe. Then let them bring an announcement like it if they are truthful. So that is the challenge. What do you think of this, AP? Is this a good argument? You were a Muslim.
Well, to be very honest, when I was a Muslim, I never paid attention to that argument. As far as I remembered, I don't know. It's kind of hard to think back about what you thought about specific things like these, but it was never really in my focus when I was a Muslim myself. I never really paid attention to this. Maybe it never resonated with me, although I did read this and I did hear it all the time. So maybe I just never recognized it as a reasonable, good, strong argument to begin with. And I see it today too. It's like I cannot sit down and even right now understand how one could consider that argument a strong, solid argument. I just don't get it.
Yeah, this is one of the infamous. Let me read this comment real quick. Carol B says, "Anyone listen to Mike Winger's short video on the Quran today? His take on it was hilarious. I just saw before we went live that Mike Winger has posted a video. We'll check it out, and if it's good, and I expect it will be, and if it's funny, and I expect it will be, we'll probably be talking about it in a live stream and go through it."
Who's Mike? Oh, Mike Winger is a boring Christian apologist.
Right? Yeah. He's the Ned Flanders of Christian apologetics. Hey, shout out to all my wingalings out there. We're about to go through the Quran. Yippity skippity. Super nice guy. That super nice guy. Even though he tries to be like me. So we had this. This is one of the infamous Muslim arguments where it's flawed in multiple ways. Like there are multiple flaws in the argument. So even if you granted that no one could write anything like the Quran, like it's just so amazing you can't write anything like that, what does that have to do with it being from God? At best case scenario, that would simply mean that Muhammad had a unique literary style or something like that, right? And you could say that for you could point to anyone in history who had a unique literary style and then say, other people can't write like him, therefore it has to be from God. That's insane. So you have that problem. And then in addition to that, we are really not that impressed with the Quran. That's what Farid is about to go off on. It's us saying he goes after me saying that this is the worst book I've ever read. Guys, I did not say that lightly. I've read a lot of books in my life. The Quran is the worst book. The Quran is the worst book I've ever read. And I've pointed out before, I do not say that because I reject it. There are all kinds of books that I reject and disagree with that are brilliantly written books. The Quran ain't one of them. The Quran ain't one of the brilliantly written books that I've read and disagree with. It's a horribly written book that I also disagree with. So multiple flaws in this. You're grinning at something. What's up?
I'm not embarrassed to say. I said this in the past as well. I'm not embarrassed to say that during my high school years, late high school, I don't know, I read the Twilight book.
You're not embarrassed to say that?
No, I'm not embarrassed.
That's the vampires versus werewolves stuff, right?
Yeah, and the very cringy love story. I read the first book and half of the second book. I'm not embarrassed to say it.
Did you fantasize about how you could be a vampire too?
Yeah,
and stuff?
yeah. I wanted to be a vampire.
Awesome.
And what's funny is the first book was so good, despite the stupidity of the plot and all that. It was a page turner. Like it was very good. I remember like one night being unable to sleep because I'm just in bed with the book and I'm just going next page. Okay, I'm going to stop after this page, and then next page. I'm reading more and more and more, and then I eventually passed out with the book in my hand because it was so interesting. Although I thought it was very dumb, which was very, very strange. It was like a guilty pleasure. But you can't say the same thing about the Quran. People are forced to sit down and read the Quran. Right?
Yeah.
They are forced to sit down and read it because it is repetitive. It is not enlightening, not exciting. It doesn't offer you anything new. It doesn't appeal to any actual real human situation or problem. It repeats things over and over again, cuts stories off in the middle for no reason and jumps to something completely different, takes stories from the Bible, a few of them, and completely butchers them. It's painful, incredibly painful to read it. And I tried after many years to read it again several years ago, and it's incredibly painful. I don't know what to say.
It is. It's like I had to force myself to read the Quran. I mean, I had to like deliberately force myself to sit down and read this every day until I finished it. And yes, it was painful. And when I'm thinking, like, normally when we're bringing this up, I bring up Hume's Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion and Plato's Republic, because those are two books that I think are really, really masterfully written. And yet I disagree with a lot of them. And yet I can say these are amazingly written books. But I'm now thinking of other books. And then so like the Da Vinci Code, there's tons of stupid, idiotic stuff in there. Similar to the Quran, in which case he's just putting all sorts of idiotic claims in there that he's never researched in his life and so on, and making these claims. And so, that's an idiotic book. But very well. I mean, the guy's a great storyteller. Dan Brown's a great storyteller. That's why he sells so many of these books. Brilliant story. I mean, you could keep reading right through that book. And then I'm thinking of books where it doesn't contain anything really stupid and not masterfully written, but I remember being in a jail cell, and I preferred reading literature that I'd never read earlier in life. Like I was trying to catch up. So I'm reading like Hemingway and things like this. But I read, I had read every book that we had in our block. And then the only book that I hadn't read was a book called The Zero Factor. And I read the book and I remember thinking there is nothing of merit in here. There's not a valuable lesson. It was like a complete waste of time. It was somewhat, I mean, the only point was it was somewhat, I guess, somewhat entertaining simply because it's a story, but it was like a complete waste of time. That book was much easier to read than the Quran. I have to say that. So
that is funny. I think personally, in terms of nonfiction stuff, Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil is incredible. An incredible read with so much information packed and so much complex thought. Although it is actually very arrogant. If you want to be very honest, he's being very arrogant the whole time. And
it's kind of funny though, because he was like a frail, I mean, I think he got out of the military because he fell off his horse. He fell off his horse, and then he never like recovered, and he got rejected by every woman he was ever wanted and stuff. And so
Yeah,
it's like in his
he,
books, it's like he's got all these like bombastic ideas, and it's like the opposite of what his life was like. And so it has this simultaneously, I'm the greatest who ever lived, and we're looking at you like, I mean, you're clearly like really really intelligent, but
no, that's a funny thing. I mean, there are lots of people like that, right? But he was one
yeah,
of those people. He
they
was
become
very
they become great dais.
he was very very intelligent and deeply insightful, and offered revolutionary ideas for his time. But he was socially completely incapable. He was rejected. He died pathetically. He eventually lost his mind, collapsed. I don't know. It's just kind of sad and pathetic. But if you read the book, it's really solid stuff. Um, and what I also want to say is, to be very honest, I mean, here's a book written by an Islamic scholar who lived a long time ago, by Al-Ghazali, The Alchemy of Happiness. This is a newer version that I bought a few years ago.
It's actually a cool title.
Yeah, and I read that book when I was a Muslim, when I was a Sufi Muslim, and I also read the Quran several times through when I was a Muslim. But I had to really sit down and discipline myself to read the Quran through. And with this book, I just read it in one night, and I was amazed by it, and it impacted me much more than the Quran ever did, to be very honest. And I find that very ironic, because there is an Islamic scholar teaching Muslims about Islamic belief and morality and the meta of creation and everything, and it makes much more sense than the Quran ever does. So I don't know.
Jordan here says, wasn't Nietzsche a genius? Yeah, but he was also crazy, which puts him in the mad scientist category. So he's like a mad scientist of philosophy.
Yeah.
That and a whiny little crybaby simultaneously. So
he was a genius. He was also a jerk, and he was also very unstable. Yeah.
All right. So should we go ahead and jump into Farid's video? So Farid's responding to, we've talked about this stuff before. We've talked about the Quran's claim and why we think the Quran is poorly written and so on. And Farid, I mean, he's going to insult. I have no problem with people insulting us as long as you're prepared for insults against your fake prophet in return and so on. I do not care. I understand. Hey, we criticize Muhammad. I understand if you want to insult us, that's totally fine. But again, to his credit, he actually tries to respond to us, and that's cool. So let's go ahead and we're going to go through his response so people can see how a Muslim defender of Islam responds to our criticisms of, I guess, the kind of the main argument of the Quran as far as why you should believe in it. And let's check this out.
So I recently came across this video in which David Wood is claiming that the Quran is the worst book that he's ever read, or one of the worst books that he's ever read, and therefore
the dude cracks me up. And so I'm going to look at I don't know. Let's go.
The Quran is not from God.
There are two problems here. One, the Quran is one of the worst things we've ever read. It's absolute horrifyingly bad, painful to read. So to say that is so wonderful, it can only come from God, is an insult to God.
Of course, David Wood is affected by his bias, being a career Islamophobe and all, and that has gotten in the way of him judging the Quran fairly.
Whoa! That's interesting. Did you catch that? Because he would say the same thing about you, of course. Because we're career Islamophobes, our views get in the way of us being objective and fair and balanced in examining the argument. We could grant that. Suppose we are so repulsed by Muhammad having sex with a 9-year-old girl and taking the wife of his own adopted son and all these things. Suppose we're so horrified by that we look at his book, the book that justified all these things, and we say, that's a horribly written book. So suppose you're going to say, we're biased against it. Fair point. That can be the case. But AP, is it possible? Is the reverse possible, that they could be biased in favor of this?
That, that's the giant, huge elephant in the room, right? And I just want to ask Farid, um, if he believes, if he can admit that it is possible that a different text or a different book is actually um, better to read, more eloquent, and more interesting than the Quran. Can he honestly sit down and analyze um, and look for such a book and then admit that that is the case? Or does he even consider the possibility? If not, then why are you telling us this? You should probably check your own mind first.
Um, yeah. So just keep in mind, the same people who are saying, "Oh my goodness, we're being fair and unbiased in our assessment that the Quran is the greatest book ever written." These are the exact same people who look at the life of Muhammad and say, "Oh yeah, he had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl and took the wife of his own adopted son and got caught having sex with a slave girl and swore to Allah that he wouldn't do it again, and then received another revelation ordering him to violate his oath. And when his wife got old and fat, said he was going to divorce her until she renounced some of her marital privileges and bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves and tortured a man for money and did all these things." They'll look at that guy and say, "This is clearly and indisputably the greatest man who has ever lived." Those people, the people who look at a guy who did a bunch of the worst things that a human being could do, they look at that same guy and say, "He's clearly and indisputably the greatest man who ever lived." These are the exact same people who look at the Quran and say, "This is clearly the greatest, most eloquent book that's ever written. It can only come from God." And then they're complaining about people being biased.
Yeah, that is an actual belief, an actual report about Muhammad. I mean, David says that quite a bit, but you can actually find this in the reports. That's his second wife after the death of Khadijah, or the oldest wife of all those that he had at the same time.
Sauda.
He has the intention to divorce her, Sauda, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, she comes and is like, "Oh yeah, Rasulullah, messenger of Allah, I heard that you are going to divorce me because you don't like me anymore because I'm old and fat and all that. Please don't divorce me. Keep me, and I will make sure that I will give all my nights to a different wife,
to Aisha, yeah,
to your favorite wife." And he's like, "Okay."
And the Quran praises her for that. The Quran says, "Oh, it's great that you came to an agreement with Muhammad on this." That's
he was probably like, "Good, wow,
nice, a more sexy time with my little girl." Hey, check this out. Hi, David and AP. I've watched a great many of your videos over many years. Be informed that I will soon be ending all your arguments. Within the coming 12 months, you will receive my invitation. IA. Gee, we've only heard this 90,000 times. These guys are going to come along and end all our arguments. You don't need to wait 12 months. You can jump on with us and end our arguments anytime, Amir.
Amir, I want to say thank you so much for this very important, very significant comment. I can assure you that within several hours, none of us will remember anything we have just read in your comments, and it will just be forgotten forever. But thank you. Yeah, good for the effort. Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the amazing Farid.
Simply by making a statement like that, David Wood has disqualified himself from being an objective critic of the Quran.
I'm not objective.
In any case, I'm going to play a clip for you in which David Wood presents his astute critique of Surah Al-Kafirun. By the way...
Well, hold on.
You see, he said it was astute. He affirmed it. All right, good.
Hold on. What exactly did he say is what disqualifies you from...
Me being biased. Me being biased. We're Islamophobe, so we have disqualified ourselves from being objective, unbiased people. But them being Muslims who are just conditioned to affirm and praise the Quran and talk about perfect preservation and so on, and Muhammad being the greatest man ever, they're completely unbiased in their assessments. Okay?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Righty.
He picks this chapter because he thinks it's the easiest chapter to deal with, and the easiest and simplest chapter, one that shows absolutely no eloquence. Let's get to it. Fire intro.
Hey,
Powerful.
music. Musical instrument, musical sound.
Haram!
This.
But no, the only acceptable music is the music of things blowing up and burning to the ground. That's the sounds that Allah loves.
Yeah, you know what's funny? They make these videos, like many of these Dawah channels make these intros, and they make music, and they're like, no instrument has been used, and then they use a bunch of like I don't know, noise sounds with their mouths and
Yeah.
like, and air, not realizing that instruments just do that very same thing with with the use of different materials. So they're basically just using natural instruments and deceiving Allah and being like, oh, Allah, I did not use those instruments. I only used this instrument that you gave me. So I'm making music, but not with those instruments. That's how they trick Allah, and yeah, it apparently works.
So he said, so I picked Surah 109 because I think it's the easiest target. Not entirely correct. It's just when I used to give presentations on this argument, and when Allah says bring a chapter like it, I wanted to use a short one so that I could tell people here's an entire chapter of the Quran. So depending on the length of the presentation, if I could only give one chapter, I obviously go with one of the short ones towards the end of the Quran. And this one, just because it sounds so dumb and repetitive. But depending on the length of the presentation, I might go through 4 or 5 short chapters of the Quran, but I stick with the short ones because I obviously don't want to say, okay, let's see if we're really impressed by Surah 2 and then take forever to read through it. So let's go ahead and see. So anyway, the point is he's going to go through Surah 109. So I said that Surah 109 absolutely does not sound like something or seem like anything that a human being could not come up with, because that's the argument. This is so amazing, a human being could not come up with anything like this. And so he's going to play what I say and then respond to it.
Obviously, you are wrong, so let's see.
You see? The Quran in Surah 2 challenges unbelievers to recite, to come up with something as good as a chapter of the Quran. Check out an entire chapter of the Quran. Power. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Say, O ye that reject faith, I worship not that which ye worship, nor will ye worship that which I worship. And I will not worship that which ye have been wont to worship, nor will ye worship that which I worship. To you be your way, and to me mine. Alhamdulillah! I convert to Islam with that powerful argument.
Wow, amazing.
Guys, do you see why guys, I went to Surah 109. You can go Surah 108, Surah 107. All of the short chapters are like this. Lots of the Quran is like this. It's just you read it, and keep in mind this is different from saying this isn't the word of God, or this can't be the word of God, or something like that. If you have a good reason to believe in Muhammad, you would have a good reason to believe that this is the word of God. The problem is, in Islam, this is supposed to be the reason you know that Muhammad's a prophet. In other words, it's not here's the proof that Muhammad's a prophet, and since you accept him as a prophet, now accept his revelation. It's, look at this. This is so amazing that Muhammad must be a prophet. That's what we're objecting to, that sort of that reasoning here. All right, let's go. That according to look at you. That according to Sajid and Farid is so absolutely amazing that no one can write anything like that.
So you see, that's pretty much it. It doesn't really provide any real critique. I mean, it doesn't show why it's horrible or weak in eloquence or anything like that. And I mean, it's not.
He doesn't explain why it's horrible or not eloquent. Right? I just read it. I assume that I assume that it's obvious to everyone. Right? Like seeing is believing. If you say, if I say, look, here's a beautiful woman. Oh, you didn't show what? Yeah, I mean, I expect you to be able to see. Oh, this is a beautiful woman. if I say this is the ugliest dog I've ever seen, I expect you to just look at the dog and say, oh my goodness, that's the horribly ugly dog, right? If you're
Yeah.
saying that this is so masterfully written that it could only come from God, then then when we read it, in theory at least, you should be like, I mean, you should at least be impressed with it,
Yeah.
right? Even if you don't agree with the argument or you see a flaw with the argument, you should at least be going, wow, that is impressive. That is pretty impressive.
Oh, you look at the sky at night, and you see all the stars and everything, and I don't know. It in some parts of the world, in some special occasions, at some points of the year, you could look at the sky and you could think, "Wow, look at this! This looks amazing. This looks beautiful." And maybe somebody else observes the same thing and thinks, "Yeah, it's not that great." But at least you would think. I mean, you wouldn't think this is plain stupid. This is plain boring. There's nothing special about it.
Yeah. The point is, we can look at stuff or hear stuff and say, wow, that's impressive. You can look at a painting and say, wow, that is impressive. I get that. Even like atheists, you could look up at the sky and say, I don't believe this is creative, but I understand why some people look up at this and say this is creative or something like that.
I say that. I look at the universe, I look at things, and I'm like, I understand how people come to that conclusion. It is very difficult to imagine that all of this is there for no reason and form and all that. It is beautiful. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's impressive. But then you have different understandings of what that impressiveness is and what the beauty behind that is. But this guy, he just expects us to be blown away by this thing, and if we find it ridiculous, and we clearly show to everyone why it is ridiculous, we play it or we read it, and it just sounds ridiculous. It's like, look, they didn't even tell you why it's so bad. They didn't even explain it. So we don't have to explain.
So look, I was just okay. Let's read one. So notice the claim, ladies and gentlemen. It's this is so amazing it can only come from God. Say, okay, let's read an example of something that's so amazing a human being could not write something like that. And now Farid's going to explain, I guess, why.
I found it great that he included those movie effects, the movie sound effects.
Yeah, of course, powerful. That makes it more persuasive.
Because he doesn't know Arabic. I mean, think about it this way: imagine you're a blind.
Let me rewind it just so we don't miss what he says. But he's saying, but I don't speak Arabic. I don't remember if he includes this, but we respond to that. It's okay. Here's what it is in English. It's a series of words, one after another, meant to convey some sort of meaning. What is it in Arabic? Yeah, it's a different language, but it's the same thing. How are you making the argument that a human being could not write these words in this order? That's the problem. So let me rewind this a little bit, so that we don't misrepresent Farid.
He's horrible or weak in eloquence or anything like that. And I mean, it's natural because he doesn't know Arabic. I mean, think about it this way. Imagine you're a blind film critic at a film festival. Your opinions don't really mean much.
And of course, we get the response now. But it only works in Arabic. Oh, okay, cool.
You see, without knowing the language, there's no way of having access to all the intricacies of the language. You fail.
Oh. Wait a minute. So is he saying that the main argument of the Quran is something that you can't even comprehend if you don't know the intricacies of the Arabic language? Did y'all catch that? It's like
that means most Muslims who go around saying, "Oh, this is it, the Quran is so eloquent. There's nothing better than it," are actually making a completely baseless claim without understanding anything, because they are not experts and they cannot figure out the intricacies of Arabic.
And I mean, think about this. Like, I don't believe that Muhammad split the moon, but that argument would kind of work in any language, right? If you showed that he did, I would at least understand the argument. I would understand. Okay, Muhammad walks out there and he says, "You don't believe I'm a prophet? Watch the moon split." If that actually happened, I would understand the argument at least. You notice Jesus' resurrection, Jesus walking on water, Moses parting the Red Sea. These are things that can be understood no matter what language you're speaking. And so God's final prophet, the religion for all mankind, his main argument is an argument that can't be understood by practically anyone in mankind. Right? That is interesting. So notice what Farid's saying, because this is interesting. If we can't understand the argument because we don't know the intricacies of the Arabic language, then what's he saying? He's saying we just have to take other people's word for it. We have to take other people's word for it. Okay, well, whose word are we supposed to take for it? Arab-speaking Christians who think this argument is a joke? No. We're supposed to take people like Farid's word for it. Wait, so Farid, the guy who looks at the life of Muhammad, says is clearly the greatest man who ever lived. That's whose word we're supposed to take for this? This is interesting stuff. It's like I regard people as like the least reliable people in the world to be telling me what I need to believe because they seem so biased. And he's telling me that, hey, even though I, Farid, according to you guys, am the least reliable person in the entire history of the universe because I'm so biased in everything you can test me on, every way you can possibly test me, I come out as completely unreliable. But when I tell you that the Quran is an eloquent masterpiece, you should believe me on this and believe that it's from God. Seriously? That's the argument. So the argument that Allah has chosen is, hey guys, you should mindlessly accept the testimony of the least reliable people in the world. Dawah guys, the least reliable people in the world. I will say this a million times over. I have been to prison. I never in prison met people as dishonest as the Dawah guys. I've never seen people who lie as freely and openly as these guys.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Farid is a step above some of the other guys like Ali Dawah and so on. But my goodness, he just threw the entire argument under the bus. Allah gave an argument that can only be confirmed by the least reliable people in the world. Because again, even if you go to Arabic-speaking Christians, they'll say this is a terrible argument. Interesting.
It is very, very, very interesting. I wanted to say something, but I'm wondering if he would ever engage with arguments from Arabic-speaking scholars or critics who explain to him why exactly they think the Quran is not special and why exactly the Quran is flawed, not eloquent. I mean, there have been people in the past. There are still people today who have looked at the Quran and analyzed its literary aspects and concluded that it is not an amazingly impressive, beautiful text. That it has a lot of contradictions and inconsistencies in its usage of certain words. I had a scholar on Shadi Nasser. He explained to me, for example, that the Quran is. He said he was being very honest. He said the Quran is. In a way, altogether, if you look at it, it has an impressive aspect. I mean, when it's considered from a literary aspect, it is different. It is impressive. But what exactly does that really mean? Because the Quran is a thing. It is alone in its own genre. It defined the literature, and just because it is impressive, it doesn't mean that there is nothing else that is better than the Quran. There are lots of things that are written better than the Quran, but of course you can never prove that they are better than the Quran because the Quran has this whole system set up developed over 1,400 years of just of declaring why exactly it is so amazing. We just can't catch up with that. No matter what you do, they will always come up with different explanations why the Quran is actually better.
Yeah, and there's a problem in this, in that it only works in Arabic Responds. Even though you lose something in translation, a lot of the literary value of something does come across in translation. In other words, you can read Dostoevsky in English. It's still masterfully written, even in translation. Let me give everyone an example here. So here's 1 Corinthians 13. We'll just read the beginning. This is the Apostle Paul. It says, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So you have, passages like this, the Sermon on the Mount, so Matthew 5-7, a lot of the Psalms, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, and so on. You have very well written passages. Christians don't say, look, this is so great, a human being could not have written this. And yet these are great passages in any language. And we got the Quran and we pull it out and it's so masterfully written. And it's like, oh, but it only works in one language, and in any other language, it sounds stupid. Oh, okay, well, why couldn't Allah write something that also is really impressive in any other language? I don't know.
We have an example of Homer's The Odyssey, right? Which is considered widely one of the best literary works ever, and it is incredibly old. I don't know, when is that even from? Is that I don't know, thousands of years ago.
Yeah. That's like I forget. Like what? Anyone know Homer? It's eight somewhere between 800 and 1200 BC, something like that. Yeah.
8th century BC sounds correct. But it is considered even today. It is considered one of the best literary works ever. And humans can come together, a lot of them, and recognize, wow, this book, this text, this is incredible, one of the best things ever. People don't come together and say that about the Quran. And if the Quran was actually so objectively better than anything out there, it would cause the same effect. But it obviously doesn't. When have you ever seen a list of the best literary works ever, which included the Quran?
Yeah, and the only people who would say that are just people who've kind of been conditioned to say it. I'm not even talking about Muslims. You'll have people like it was actually a joke on 30 Rock, on the TV show 30 Rock. Mm-hmm. Liz Lemon, she's like the main character, and she asks Jenna, she's like, who's like the dumbest one on the show. She's like, did you say the Quran is your favorite book? And she goes, yeah, I just wanted to sound smart. so she knows, this will make me sound smart if I say the Quran is my favorite book. Yeah. All right, here we go.
To appreciate the rhyme, you fail to appreciate the rhythm. Oh, and
you fail to appreciate the rhythm and the rhyme, yo.
lose the essence of the work, which is why Arbery, when translating the Quran, felt the need to keep a rhyme scheme going. Of course, he did that at the expense of the meaning of the actual text.
But by the way,
Arbery?
Yeah, he's saying Arbery did that. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'd have to take a look. But
Arbery has the most literally. I don't know. But
yeah,
I think it's very close to the real meaning in terms of a word for word literal meanings. Anyway,
yeah, I've never even noticed that from Arbery. But no, it's interesting what he's saying there, that in order to preserve the rhythm and the rhyme, he sacrificed the meaning. But that's the exact same thing that you'll see with the Iliad and the Odyssey. There are translators there are translations which are considered a joke because they make it rhyme throughout, right? Which there are Westerners who like that and say, oh, it's great that it rhymes all the way through. And then, but the actual people who understand the work are like, yeah, but they're kind of messing with stuff in order to keep up the rhyme scheme. So notice what Farid is saying here. He's saying like any poetic work, they deal with the exact same thing. And oh, if you're just reading it without the rhymes, you don't understand the rhymes. Like what? Our question is what that has to do with something being from God. Like, oh, look, I'm reading a copy of the Iliad. Oh, I don't get the full eloquence of the Greek in this English translation. Therefore, it's from God. We don't understand what in the name of common sense you're saying, Farid. We don't understand the argument. And you're just, if you only understood that there are rhymes to it, then you would understand that it's from God. No, that's precisely what we don't understand. We do not understand, right? All right, so Farid, if you take some amazing verses from Eminem, right? Like, samalama dumalama you, I'm human. What I got to do to get it through to you? I'm superhuman, right? If you take that and you say,
Wait a minute. Hey, that's my favorite Eminem song. Well, you
oh
know
yeah,
that part? That's
oh
nice.
that's
Yeah.
funny. Like if you translated that into another language, okay, it's not gonna fit. It's not gonna fit into the same rhyme. And so suppose you someone translated that in another language and they said, well, that doesn't impress me if you're saying it must have come from God because of its brilliant rhymes. And then, like, imagine someone coming and saying, but if you look at it in the English, it rhymes great, and that's what you're missing. It's like, that's not what we're missing. It doesn't matter how brilliantly it rhymes. We're not understanding how that qualifies as the slightest bit of evidence that it comes from God. Oh my goodness, this is what we're dealing with.
We also have to notice, somebody pointed out in the comment section that Farid is being very bigoted and very ableist here by saying that we just don't understand it because we don't know Arabic, and this is unacceptable. So I'm reporting him to the necessary authorities.
He's Allah doesn't love non-Arab speakers.
Yeah.
Because you can't force rhymes while keeping true to the meaning. In any case, just to give you an idea of how oblivious David is to the intricate meanings of the verses, we find him relying on a translation that's filled with errors. In fact, there's an error in...
David is relying on Muslim translations, so let me correct him and tell him how bad this translation is. Okay, so this is going to show us. He's going to break down the intricacies of the actual what it should have been translated as. And once we see the real translation, then we'll see how powerful it is. Oh, correction. Me and AP won't see it because we're biased, but the rest of you, once Farid explains this, then you'll be able to see why it's so powerful and must come from God.
Which translation did you use again?
I do not recall. We'll see once he puts it up on the screen, and then we'll go ahead and look.
Every single verse. Of course, he did not catch.
Nor will you worship.
That is Yusuf
that's
Ali.
Yusuf Ali. That's Yusuf Ali.
Yeah.
You beat me to it by a quarter of a second. That must mean that you're a prophet.
Any of these. There you go. Much better.
Oh, much better.
But allow me to break this down in order for you to appreciate what's...
Wait. He's correcting the translation, and then he says much better.
In fact, there's an error in every single verse. Of course, he did not catch any of these.
Come on, give us the real translation.
There you go.
Okay, there we go.
Pause.
There we go. Done.
Pause.
So, should we read it? Let's go ahead and read it. Let's go ahead and read it in his corrected translation. So, guys, I confess, I have sinned. I read the Yusuf Ali translation and not the official Farid translation. I read the Yusuf Ali translation, the most popular translation in English. But now we have the official Farid translation. And it's, "Say, O ye disbelievers, I worship not that which ye worship, nor are you worshippers of that which I worship. And I am not a worshipper of that which ye have been wont to worship, nor are you worshippers of that which I worship. To you be your religion, and to me mine." All right, ladies and gentlemen, now that you have the official Farid version, now do you see the glorious intricacies of the meaning of the holy, beautiful text that could only come from God? Do you guys see it now? Because Farid says once you get the correct translation, how does he not understand that this is not helping? AP, do you think this is even slightly more impressive than...
Okay, hold on. Let's see. Let's compare here. I got this one here. Say, O ye that reject faith, where he says, "Say, O ye disbelievers, I will not worship that which ye worship, nor are you worshippers of that which I worship. To be your religion and to me mine." Farid, how in the world do you think that makes a difference?
It obviously makes a difference now that you understand the brilliance of the eloquence of the intricacies of the language and the meaning. You see it, but you can't because you're biased.
I mean, he's sitting here and basically arguing Yusuf Ali, who was recognized widely by governments and authorities around the world, and who got sponsored, and his Quran was distributed and is still today distributed by so many religious authorities and governments, was obviously a complete idiot and made mistakes here in his translation. Let me correct him. And, and then he puts this here on the screen and thinks, see, much better. And it doesn't change anything at all.
No, that's what I'm trying to understand. It's like, oh, you could use a different word here. Yeah, not addressing our point at all.
So he may be correct in, for example, in the first verse, it is, so the word is kafirun, disbelievers. Okay, I will not worship. What does it say in the actual translation of Yusuf Ali? It says, I worship not. How is that different?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like we're saying, hey, we're not impressed by this. And he's like, but if you, here, I'll give you something that's equally unimpressive, but slightly different. Okay. Now what? Okay. Should we go through some more of this?
Much better.
Did he
Much
say
better.
just?
But
Did he
allow
say
me
much
to break
better?
this
No.
down in order for you to appreciate what's going on in the verse, since you're completely oblivious to it. Qul, say, an order to the Prophet, peace be upon him.
It says cool. You see, how could anyone write that except for God? No one could ever use that word.
The shortest and most direct way of giving an order to get a message.
Wow.
It's the shortest and the most direct way. Allah could have used something that is, much more time consuming. Instead, he gave a short, concise way, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could do that.
What a low bar, Farid. Muslims, what a low bar. I mean, this is what this guy finds remarkable. A very clear way to give an order to people. Say, wow, who else could have come up with something so brilliant?
Only Allah.
Humans and jinns, everybody could sit down, but they would never ever come up with the idea of starting it with kul, with say. Allah can only do this because He is the Almighty, the All-Knowing. What in the world is wrong with you?
Can you imagine? I mean, the argument is, guys, I want someone, can anyone in the chat come up with a way to command someone to say something as concise as say? No, you can't. If all of you and all the jinn and Satan himself conspired to try and write something like say, you couldn't do it. At least not in Arabic, because Allah says so.
I find this whole arrogant tone that he uses while he's explaining this also very interesting. Like, he's like, oh, obvious, we are understanding this. This is so brilliant, and let me show you how.
All right, here we go.
Cross. If the verse said udhkur or kellim or belligh, which are synonyms to qul, the same would not occur, since it would have to be linked to other words. It's kind of like saying tell. Well, tell whom? You can't just say tell. However, you can give the...
Guys, do you understand what he's saying here? He's saying, if I say, and then I tell you what to say, well, I could have said, tell them, or say to them, or declare unto them, or speaketh unto them. I could have said it in a more complex way, but Allah said it in a simple, concise way, and therefore, He's the only one who could have written this. No human being could ever say. They would say it some much longer way, and you see, that's why this has to come from Allah. This is his actual claim. And this is the claim he's using based on the Quran.
This
Wow.
is so intellectually weak. It is so embarrassingly stupid. I'm really wondering if there are Muslims who are watching this and who are like, wow, yeah, I never thought about that. That makes so much sense. I have now more reason to believe in the divine origins of this beautiful book. Wow.
Hang on.
Jeez. This is too
Let
much.
me see. I want to
I'm done.
actually. I don't want to pull these up because I don't want to have to get this up on the screen when I already have a bunch of tabs open. Eloquence of the Quran explained. I just want to look at some of the comments from Muslims. One of my favorite Quran chapters. I'm actually quite thankful to them for choosing to take Allah's challenge, because the more they work towards tackling it, the more it would be exposed how miraculous and amazing the Quran is. You
I
forgot
don't
the
want to
most
use the
brilliant,
word.
the most beautiful linguistic gem in this chapter. It's beautiful when the Quran talks blah, 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 blah. Oh, what a beautiful... Abdullah Amin, what a beautiful demonstration. This video just shows further how shallow and ignorant these critics of Islam actually are. They're all...
Oh my
Barakallah, Farid, it's a beautiful explanation. You should do this more often, inshallah. They're all cheering him on about how brilliant his response is. Allah says, say, instead of tell them. So he cut out an entire word by saying say, and only Allah can actually cut out a word. This is amazing.
I really have to keep it together and not express how
Stupid this is.
horrible. More than that. Yeah. Wow.
All right. Ooh. Let's go.
Command to say. Ya here is a term used to call the people onto you.
And he could have said that in 10 words, but he chose, only Allah could do that.
Al-Kafirun,
Don't we hear people all the time? Ya akhi, ya akhi.
the disbelievers. We have God referring to those that believe in him as disbelievers, negating their claim to faith. He labels them as kafirun, not kafara or any other synonym, for the purpose of the upcoming rhyme in the verse.
He uses a word. He chooses the word specifically for the upcoming rhyme. No one could do that. Only Allah can choose a word for rhyming purposes. The only one. Only one in the world.
Except every single poet ever. Yeah, so
Oh yeah. There's them, but they don't count.
The translation provided by David says, say, O ye that reject faith. This is not an accurate translation. In fact, Al-Mutarrazi, a 6th century expert in the field of eloquence, says directly that the ism al-mawsul was avoided in the verse. In other words, the word that isn't mentioned. So it does.
Catch that, everyone? The word that, which occurs in the translation, is not in the Arabic, thus proving the perfect eloquence of the Quran. He's saying this with a straight face, probably.
Say, O ye that reject faith, but rather it says, say, O ye disbelievers. That would be a closer translation. So the question is, why does the actual verse say disbelievers instead of something like that reject faith? Well, it's because the disbelief of this believer is greater in affirmation than one that is rejecting faith, which seems temporary. For example, there's a difference between one who steals and a thief. Someone that stole once or someone that stole at one point in their life isn't the same as someone who practices it regularly to the extent that they're referred to as a thief. But there's a greater reason why this word was chosen, and it's going to be connected to verse number 3, which I'll get to later. To summarize, the verse is an order from the Almighty to his prophet to relay a message to disbelievers that reject him, God, to say...
Wait, what are you smiling and laughing at? Do you think of something funny? Did you think of something funny that must have happened earlier? Because I know you're not laughing at this, because this is brilliant. Were you thinking of some show you watched earlier? Huh? Maybe some YouTube video? Maybe some clever anecdote that someone told you? Maybe some joke that you heard earlier? Because I know you're not laughing at this. Because that'd be a one-way ticket to hell if you think this is stupid.
It's impossible. I'm thinking, I used to write I thought I had it here somewhere, but I very early in my high school times, I used to write poetry
Wow.
in Turkish when I was religious, and also before I was so when I became very devout religious, and also before that time, um, and I would sit down and use a specific pattern of rhymes, and also always finish it in the last verse with a certain word that I would use, and I would of course choose the words in such a way that they would somehow rhyme. It would also sound nice. And does that now mean, since I did that, and since I put all of it in a certain pattern and made the count of syllables and everything entirely equal, does this mean that I am something like Allah? Maybe
I
it
don't know
looks like
how
something.
I don't know how you're not using that, dude. That is a perfect video, right? You read some of your Turkish poetry, and then you say that this proves that you're a prophet, and then say Arabic speakers can't disagree with you unless they also know Turkish,
Yeah.
and you're the judge of the contest. And you can challenge everyone to write something like it. And every time they try, just say that's not as good. That's not good enough.
I mean, look at the criteria that he just look at what he praised this whole thing for. Just the first line is, "Allah used something concise and direct as qul, say, wow." And then he addressed them as, those who disbelieve, and he wrote it in such a way. He said it in such a way that it would rhyme instead of using different words that could also be used for disbelievers. And wow, look how impressive this is. This is like the most basic quality of every poetry book that I've ever read. So I, I don't even understand.
Yeah, like I like ice cream a whole lot. It is good when days are hot. Oh yeah, I must be from God. And what's crazy is, I mean, I'm trying to like I don't even see how this is as eloquent as like regular, ordinary, like eloquent poetry in English, right? Like so T.S. Eliot. Let us go then, you and I, while the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask what is it. Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The point is, I'm more impressed with something like that. If you're just saying, "How wow, this is eloquent." In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Okay, that's good. It would never cross my mind. Oh, it must be from God. It's just from a poet. But in Islam,
Why do you have that in your memory?
I don't know. we had to read then. That was like AP English back in the day. AP.
Oh,
Hey, that was AP English.
yeah.
Anyway,
No,
I don't
no,
know why
but you
I
read
like
those
it.
things and you find them impressive, right? I mean, you find them.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah,
evokes
and
something.
I remembered it. So therefore, it has to be from God, because anyone knows if you
Wow.
memorize poetry, it must come from God. Go ahead.
Whoa. No, I remember reading lots of poetry, Turkish inspired by Persian poetry, which was considered very impressive stuff. Persian poetry was always considered very special. Uh, Reading different books and thinking and just getting this feeling of joy because of how impressive it is the way they write, or how impressive it is their choice of words and how they deliver the message that they have. And I don't know, this is just so stupidly absurd.
If by stupidly absurd you mean super smart and brilliant.
Have you read War and Peace?
Are you asking?
uh yeah, I mean, have you read War and Peace? It's I mean,
I read half of War and Peace. This was in this was in jail. I read half of War and Peace, and then they broke up the block because of a bunch of fights. They would do that when they break up the block, and they couldn't figure out. No one would snitch. So they wouldn't know who's fighting who, so they just break up the block. And I left my book behind. I never finished it. But yes, I was massively impressed with the first half of War and Peace. Like he seemed amazing to me, and that dude could be talking about anyone. He could be talking about what's going through a girl's mind on her wedding night and stuff. And somehow he's like it makes it seem like he actually understands what's going through a girl's mind. Those Russians always impress me with their understanding of psychology.
Yeah, Russian literature through those times is extremely impressive, incredibly impressive, and much better than anything the Quran has to offer, honestly.
Yeah, massively. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even notice Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky, when he's talking about wow. when he's talked about like after he committed his crimes and it's like becoming paranoid that there might be a spot of blood on his clothes and stuff like that. Like I've been through that. I've been through, committing a crime and I must have missed something and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, did Dostoevsky do this stuff? And he's speaking from experience. Did he talk to a bunch of people and interview them? But the point is, he's getting it right. But notice, if someone made an argument, how could he be getting the psychology right? No one would say it must be from God. Just, okay, you're a good writer, and somehow you understand what's going through people's minds. In Islam, it's, hey, Muhammad wrote this poem that impresses his followers, therefore it's from God. And that's the argument of the Quran. It's the main argument of the Quran.
That's a good example. Crime and Punishment is incredibly impressive. The Quran is nothing in comparison to that. Farid, I'm saying this to you. Crime and Punishment is an incredibly impressive book, and the Quran is nothing in comparison.
I agree completely. That is a fair point. There are tons of books that are massively better than the Quran.
Yeah.
La a'budu.
Oh,
in the translation,
La a'budu. No one could write something like that.
Provided by David, it says, I worship not that which ye worship. Not entirely correct. It says La a'budu. When the term La is
the guys just, I mean, I want to play this to let him go through this, but I mean, he's actually saying not entirely correct. If you go with the correct one, it's no more impressive than, oh my goodness.
To a verb in the present tense, it also refers to the future. So the correct translation is, I will not worship.
Guys, can any of you write something like, I will not worship? If you can, you must be speaking from God.
I will not worship that which ye worship, nor are you worshippers of that which I worship. Notice how it says, Ma ta'budun. That which ye worship, the term ma here is often used to encompass all of which you worship without specifying which idol or which idols, in order to encompass all of their false deities. So if they, for example, ask the Prophet, peace be upon him, to worship Hubal, for example, then the verse wouldn't only be referring to Hubal, but it would be referring to Allah, to Al-Uzza, other idols, the angels, etc. Anything they worship. Then we have, nor are you worshippers of that which I worship. وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ. Here, the verse refers to them as عَابِدُون, negating that they are worshippers of what he worshipped.
Farid, I'm genuinely, I'm trying to not make fun of this. I'm trying not to be goofy about it. And
hold on, Andrew Martin's a prophet. He did it. He said the same thing. Oh my goodness, it could only come from. Andrew Martin's got to come from God. But I think Andrew Martin's an atheist. So, oh my goodness, Andrew Martin, you can't be an atheist anymore because you have to believe in God because you can only say this by God. All right, sorry to interrupt, but I had to say that.
No problem. I fail to see how any of this is impressive in any way, and I feel like you have to be a Muslim, you have to be faithful, and you have to be completely blind and dishonest to yourself in order to think that this is some really incredible presentation that you're giving here. It is just not impressive at all. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know, but
I have to say, there does seem to be this tendency, and I suppose anyone could do this, but there is this tendency of the da'is to to expect their viewers to believe that as long as they say a bunch of words in response, that they have offered a brilliant refutation. Like you say, oh, so-and-so says this. Let me say a bunch of words that don't actually do anything. Like you can sit down and examine them and try to make an argument out of them, and they don't answer anything that's being said. Like any of our criticism, anything we said about this passage. What has Farid actually answered here? What? I'm not aware of anything. Are you?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Nothing. Look at this. Wie viele Deutsche sind hier? Und müsst ihr nicht arbeiten?
It's funny. That it says how many Germans are here. Don't you have to work?
Why aren't you working? Lazy bums. Oh my goodness. And you non-German speakers, if you can't write anything like that, you have to admit that. No, AP, you gave the wrong translation. See, you could have translated it like this, which would mean it's from God, yeah?
Despite being believers in Allah. However, their polytheism has nullified their worship of Him. Also, it negated them as worshippers of Allah as a noun and not as a verb, in the same way that it referred to them as disbelievers early on in verse number 1, instead of those that simply commit disbelief. The verse ends again with a ma a'bud, and you are not worshippers of what I worship. Ma a'bud using the same ma, which is usually used as what or which, same as the previous verse, in order to mirror it. But now it means who or men in Arabic. The usage, of course, is a correct one linguistically. To summarize, the Almighty is telling His Prophet to tell the pagans that His Prophet will not worship their idols and that they will not worship Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't talking to them directly, but He is telling His messenger to tell them. Otherwise, it would have said, O disbelievers, my Prophet worships me, and you are not worshipping me. Now compare it to this. Say, O ye...
What are you laughing at? I wasn't even going to laugh. I was trying to be serious.
Yeah, go ahead.
Say, O David Wood, Wyatt is not 12 years old. I can't say that, Wyatt, because then I'd be lying. What is this? German is just not a pretty language.
How dare you?
We lost a German in David, pure talent. I'm just looking for the comment. David's Deutsch ist so gut. Ist ein Gottheit. Ja, du hast recht. Möchtest du ins Kino gehen? All right, here we go.
Disbelievers, I will not worship that which you worship, nor are you worshippers of that which I worship. Remember, all these additional meanings are due to the inclusion of a single word that consists of two letters.
Yeah.
Okay, well, because he added these two letters, we get all this additional meaning. Okay. Yeah. Now,
you know what's so interesting? Go ahead.
I just want to say, suppose we grant that. The question remains, what does that have to do with it being from God? In other words, let me put this differently. Farid, are you saying that if someone adds a word that adds extra meaning, that it must be from, is that the claim, right? Everything you're saying, I'm trying to put in the form of a syllogism, but if I do, if I used the exact same argument for anything else in the history of humanity, you would say that's no evidence that it's from God.
Yeah.
And yet here it somehow is. That's what we're asking. Why is this magically different for your religion than for anything else that's ever been written? That's what we're asking. All right, go ahead.
Nothing. I have nothing to add. It is terrible. I have nothing to add.
Sorry, Farid. Elmo not understand.
Oh, you know what's funny? His first
Farid.
remark about this whole chapter was that it is direct and concise because it starts with say, but then he continues to read a chapter that is just to read lines that are just totally repetitive. If Allah wants to be concise and direct, he could have just said, "Say, O disbelievers, I do not worship that which you do not which you worship, and you will not worship what I worship. To me, your religion, and to you yours." That's it. Why why this whole repetition and this verbosity for no reason at all?
One of life's great mysteries.
قل.
And now I'm going to do a 17-hour live stream responding to their entire 2-hour live stream, and I'm going to defend the amazing eloquence of Surah 109.
Carrying on in the next verse, we find a similar meaning at the start. Instead of I will not worship, it says وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ, meaning, nor am I a worshipper of that which you worshipped. While it seems similar and both speak of the Prophet, peace be upon him's rejection of the false deities, verse 2 speaks of his action, while verse 4 speaks of him, the person.
Whoa! One verse speaks of his action, another speaks of the person. That's something only Allah could do. How does he not get this point at all? Hey, check this out. G-Boom says, David gets offended when AP speaks in a hillbilly's accent, but constantly mocks non-U.S. accents. Very easy to understand, G-Boom, when AP, who is Turkish, makes fun of a hillbilly accent, it's racist.
Yeah.
Okay? When I make fun of a German accent, it's not racist. Okay.
Good.
I'm part German. Okay. Get it right.
Notice how he is referring to their actions in the past tense, then affirming that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is not a worshipper of what they worshipped in the past.
Whoa.
So now we have everything covered, past, present, and future. The next verse seems identical to verse 3.
Yep.
But it looks like there is a repetition occurring, but this is not the case.
Not the case.
For verse 3 is connected to the previous verse that speaks of the future, while verse 5 is connected to verse 4, which speaks about the past.
So,
Verse
Farid,
5
just a very quick question here. Why doesn't it just say, I will never worship what you worship, instead of repeating that whole thing and using different times and different tenses and different contexts? Why doesn't it just say, O disbelievers, I will never worship what you worship, nor do you worship what I worship. To you, your religion, and to me, my religion. That would have covered the very same thing for which we have wasted a lot of space and time. Thanks, Allah. Why? Please explain this to me.
Powerful. And the whole thing, I mean, imagine, the whole thing is only a couple verses and can be said in a few seconds. And yet it's all this, like, I don't know. It still seems like, I don't want to say horribly written, but it's definitely, well, no, I will say it. This sounds horrible. This sounds ridiculous. But suppose we granted that it's okay, or even more that we granted that it's good, or even more that we granted that it's great, amazing. There are all kinds of amazing things written by human beings. We're still asking why a human being could not put words in this order. That's the question. I have not seen any answer, but there's not much longer of this. Maybe he's about to get to it.
And you are not worshippers of what I worship, but is referring to what he worshipped in the past. For this is connected to what they worshipped previously. However, the term worship is used to complete the repetition of verse 3, while also being clearer since it removes any ambiguity that could suggest that he worshipped something else in the past. So in reality, while both verses have the exact same words, verse 3 is about the future, while verse 5 is about the past.
So while both verses have the exact same words, one's about one thing, one's about the other. All right.
Whoa.
So let's summarize.
Powerful.
Allah the Almighty is telling
Allah can completely repeat a verse and be saying completely different things if you're looking for it. Nice.
the Prophet,
Only Allah
So
can do
notice, A mere human being, could not repeat the same words in that are connected to different things to convey a slightly different meaning. Interesting.
Upon him to tell them that he was never a worshiper of those that they worshipped in the past. He will never worship their idols in the future.
A human being could not possibly come up with words to convey the idea that Muhammad has never worshipped and never will worship what they worship. A human being cannot say that. It's linguistically impossible for a human being to say these things. That's what he's claiming, ladies and gentlemen.
For he is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Even back in the past, before Islam, he was not a worshipper of their idols. So how could he start now after becoming a messenger of the Almighty?
Were you saying something?
I was saying evidence. Oh. Evidence needed, citation needed. Yeah, I just wrote something that is actually better and more concise.
Impostorous.
I wrote, say you who deny, never will I glorify what you glorify, and you do not glorify what I glorify. To you, your way, and to me, mine.
Powerful. Powerful.
Much more concise, rhyming, perfect. And this clearly shows that I speak on behalf of Allah.
Hey, Farid, this argument was stupid 5 minutes ago. It's stupid now. It'll always be stupid forever. That's past, present, and future. Therefore, I'm a prophet according to you.
That's good.
For the end of the chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Prophet, peace be upon him, to summarize the previous verses by saying to them, to you is your religion, to me is my religion. It starts off with to you, causing the sentence to mean to you and not to others. Is this religion of yours? This religion is one that you came up with, hence it is yours. Also, the verse ends with, to me, my religion, to keep with the flow of the verse, even though we understand from the context that it is referring to the religion of Allah. In other words, Allah is telling the Prophet, peace be upon him, to tell the polytheists that their religion is theirs alone and that his religion is that which he endorses and it is what is practiced by the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Okay, hold on.
How
dare you interrupt the most brilliant thing I've ever heard in my life?
Am I the only one who is perceiving a huge hypocrisy here and analyzing this little line here? He says, to you, your religion, and to me, my religion. It says, so the brilliance here is that it says to you, and it says to you because it is their religion which they made up, and it belongs to them. So, and that's why the choice of words here is like it is possessive. It is to you, your religion, because obviously they made it up. But to me, my religion. Should you not apply that same standard which you just did to that part as well? To me, my religion. The Quran commands Muslims or Muhammad or the average Muslim when he reads this to say this to the disbelievers. Shouldn't this then also be applied to Muhammad or to the Muslim and be understood as this is Muhammad's religion because he made it up? You know, it's his personal thing. So your religion is something that you made up, therefore it belongs only to you. And my religion, you know, that's what I made up. That's obviously my religion, and that's why it belongs to me. This is such mental gymnastics to contradict yourself within the same line, to completely switch standards to fit your agenda so blatantly. Wow. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say anymore. Wow.
I know what to say. I'll say, if Farid can't write rhymes like mine, he has to admit that mine are divine. Oh, I got a rhyme. It's concise. End of chapter. Prove that that's not from God, Farid.
Wow.
And I can break out a dictionary and go through every single word I just used there. I could speak for 20 minutes on that one thing I just said, and that'll mean it's from God.
This is so David, if I say to you, I will not believe in what you believe in, and you will not believe in what I believe in. To you is your beliefs, and to me are mine. Apparently, somebody can sit down and analyze what I just said
You can't
and
be an
take from
atheist
here.
anymore, AP, because you're a prophet of God.
Somebody can sit down and analyze what I just said and take from this, wow, this is brilliant. When he said to you, your belief, he was clearly, saying in a very intricate and brilliant way that he made it up, and it is obviously just his own creation, his own mind. That's why he says to you is your belief. But when he says to me, my belief, then that is an affirmation that this comes from a higher place. What in the hell are you talking about?
AP, I know you're an atheist, but we're gonna have to watch that language on this Christian program.
I know, I know, I know, I know.
He knew it. He knew it as soon as he said it. As soon as he said it.
I noticed it immediately. It slipped out. I'm sorry, but yeah, this is just.
We'll give you a pass on this one, AP.
It's very hard. It's very hard right now to wow.
Oh man. Fortunately, he's on the last verse there. So,
But I'll stick with this for now. Look at how much is going on here. These two guys, they came and thinking.
So that's it. Look at how much is going on here. David and the Apostate Prophet don't know all the stuff that's going on here. This is awesome. All right.
There's nothing going on. It's just a bunch of repeated ramblings and words with no depth. When in reality, everything is covered
That's what
from past to present to future, intricate wordplay throughout, and all in just a few verses. But by the way, since we're doing this and since we're starting a conversation, what I would like you to do in the same way that I've demonstrated the eloquence.
Wait.
Too late.
He's issuing a challenge here. I've demonstrated the eloquence by saying pretty much exactly what you thought it was saying, and translating it slightly differently. And now that I've done it, so hang on, let me rewind so we understand his point that what he's claiming to have done and what he wants to do in return. Let's see. Let me back this thing up.
All in just a few verses. But by the way, since we're doing this and since we're starting a conversation, what I would like you to do in the same way that I've demonstrated the eloquence of Surah Al-Kafirun, I'd like you
He said he's demonstrated the eloquence of this chapter. Okay.
to demonstrate how the heck the second epistle of John is seen as inspired text. Waiting for a response. Put something up, answer the question, deal with the argument. Catch you guys later. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
Does he not get it?
It really seems like he thinks that we have the same reasoning that Muslims have. Like we're claiming it's inspired because we don't think a human being could possibly come up with something. Let me
He really doesn't get it. I mean, this is amazing. He really does not get it.
Okay, so the question is 2 John. Hang on, let me see exactly what he says here.
Wow, man!
And he's using New International Version. I'll try and use the same one.
How the heck the second epistle of John is seen as inspired text? Waiting for a response. Put something up, answer the question, deal with the argument. Catch you guys later. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
He is incapable of understanding Christian understandings and of comparing his religion to other religions on a very basic level. Wow.
Hang on, there's 18 seconds of this video left for some reason. Hang on.
Wow.
Blank screen. And the problem there is human beings can put words in any order we want.
Wait,
why did he play that without answering?
And if we were to put them in some kind of order, it would probably be significantly better than the nonsense we just read.
Why did he lead? Why did he close out with that?
I don't know.
Why did he close out with that, right?
I have no idea.
It's like, hey, let me say all this stuff and ignore the main point, but tack on the main point at the end and then not respond to it. All right, so what was he saying? So he went with New International Version of 2 John. Okay, so New International Version of 2 John, he's saying How would you conclude that this is the word of God? Well, if I were a Muslim, I would argue very differently, Farid. I would give the stupidest argument possible. So, matter of fact, if I were Farid, here's how I would defend it. Ready? Okay, look at this. The elder, see there, he clearly identifies who the speaker is. I mean, how else would he so clearly identify who the speaker is than the elder? He could have said it in 57 words with many, many titles. Instead, he just says, the elder. Perfect, perfect Greek. To the lady chosen by God and to her children, whom I love in the truth. Notice he says truth. He's indicating that it's the truth from God, and not I only, but also all who know the truth. Oh, look, he's saying truth over and over again. Because of the truth, look, he said truth 3 times. This is an indication of the doctrine of the Trinity, which lives in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace. Oh my goodness, all these 3 most important things, grace, mercy, and peace, from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father's Son. Oh my goodness, identifying Father and Son right after he said truth 3 times, will be with us in truth and love. Notice, uniting in truth and love. There's no one who could write anything like this. It's so amazing. It's so great. It's so brilliant. Yeah, so that's how I would go through that if I were Farid, except I would draw it out for like 20 more minutes going through it.
Well, look, it says the children of your, and when it says your, it's very deliberate, and he could have used any other word, but he used your. Wow.
All right, Farid, we do not argue like that. I have never met a Christian in my life who would say, look, we look at 2 John and we can conclude that a human being couldn't possibly write anything like that. A human being did write that. That's our belief. A human being wrote that. So it wouldn't make any sense to say a human being didn't write that. We believe that the human being who wrote that was inspired by God. Why? Because of Jesus. This is Jesus. This is John, one of the apostles of Jesus. Jesus said that the apostles would be led into all truth by the Holy Spirit. And so, because of the authority of Jesus that he granted to his apostles, we conclude that their writings are inspired by God. There's more to it than that and how things connect and so on. But notice the point here. This, Farid, this is the main point I would want you to understand. We believe in Jesus. We believe he's the one who rose from the dead. He's prophesied. He's the one who performs all these miracles. We believe that he has God's stamp of approval on his message because of things like the resurrection, miracles, fulfilled prophecies, things like that. And then Jesus puts his stamp of approval on the writings of his apostles. Right? And so we say, oh, okay, because Jesus confirmed these guys, we accept their writings. Okay. So notice we believe in Jesus, and that's our basis for believing the writing. In Islam, it's reversed. You're saying because of the amazing writing, you believe in the guy. Right? Because this is something that no human being could ever have written, Surah 109 or any chapter of the Quran, because this is so amazingly written, it could only come from God. And therefore, because of this writing, you believe in the guy. So notice in Christianity, we believe in the guy. And then if the guy has God's stamp of approval, then we believe in what follows from that. In Islam, it's you believe it's from God because the writing clearly has the stamp of approval. And therefore, you believe in the guy, no matter how horrible he is. It's reverse. So stop saddling us with your reasoning. Like we're supposed to look at this and say, oh my goodness, the Greek word, the elder. So the Greek word there is going to be with the article, ha, prosperitas. Oh my goodness. Oh, by the way, note, I'm assuming anyone can look it up in Greek, but I'm assuming the word for elder there in the Greek is going to be presbyter. Right? This is why he's called John the Presbyter, right? Because he refers to himself as the. You remember what we're talking about, everyone? Anyone remember this? We saw Ali Dawah, genius that he is, saying, "Oh, the Christians, they don't even know who wrote this because they don't know which John it was. Was it John the Apostle or John the son of Zebedee or John the Presbyter?" Is it John? Which one? Which John? The Presbyter or the son of Zebedee on the apostle. That's the Christians don't know. They can't answer these things. And we went through that. That's the same person, right? John, the son of Zebedee, is John the apostle, who is John the presbyter.
He's also the one who said that Christians are confused because they don't know who to pray to, because they don't know, because they have the Trinity and they have like a Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and they're confused. They don't know who to pray to. It's like, this is the quality of the Dawah in their understanding of comparative religion.
There you go. Ha presbyteros as predicted. Yeah. Presbyteros. So, as predicted, so I must be a prophet.
Oh boy.
Presbyteros.
Presbyteros. I have seen a lot of the videos that Farid made. I've seen some parts of the whole proofs of prophethood things. And I have said before, in my video responses to him and also to others, the videos that he makes and the arguments that he makes are by far the worst that I have encountered in the Dawah community. And I have to, after this live stream, after what we have just witnessed, I have to say the same thing. It is simply stupid. I don't know how else to express this, but it is incredibly dumb. Farid is acting like he's there with his arrogant tone, and he's like, "Oh, look at this! Allah says this, and this clearly shows that he was, thinking about all the times, and this is referring to them as their own creation, and he acknowledges Islam as his own religion." And none of this is impressive to anybody who has just listened to this, and he thinks he really demonstrated something. He thinks this is like a boom, destroyed, Islam proven right, Quran proven of divine origin. No, it's completely idiotic. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, how can you be so stupid that you are convinced by something so low? What kind of a low bar do you have to consider something divinely inspired, of divine origin, to consider something miraculous? I don't want to be that insulting, but I really don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. And notice, I mean, someone might say, well, if you think his arguments are so stupid, why are you responding to him? Well, he's the one who's responding to us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if other Muslims have better responses, we'd be happy to look at them. If other Muslims thought they had better refutations of what we've said, be happy to go through them. But Farid's the one who's actually trying to interact with our arguments, and his fans really seem to think he's making great points. Oh, look, we got here from a Muslim. David Wood is the atheist and AP the Christian. It's funny.
So smart.
We say that as a joke, right? We say that as a joke that the in thing for Muslims is to just say you're something different from what you're claiming to be. And notice it's that's part of, we said this earlier, that like the goal is to discredit someone without actually responding to their points and so on. And so it's like in their minds, if we say you're something different from what you say, then that will refute your point. And then we don't have to listen to your point. And that this is like the level of argumentation, which again, that's part of why we're responding to Farid. He's at least trying to interact instead of just saying something stupid in order to dismiss what we're saying. He actually tries to interact with it, to his credit. So just to recap, Farid, Surah 109. The claim that we're making when we're talking is not that it's from God. I mean, it's not that it's not from God. That when we're going through Surah 109, making fun of it, saying how unimpressive it is, we're not saying this is so dumb that it can't come from God. That's not my position at all. If you had good evidence that Muhammad was a prophet, then you would have good reason to think that that's from God. Right? If you had good reason to believe that Muhammad was a prophet and good reasons to believe that Muhammad revealed Surah 109, you would have good reasons to think that Surah 109 is the speech of God. We're unaware of what good evidence you have that Muhammad is a prophet. The good evidence is supposed to be Surah 109. The good evidence, according to the Quran, is supposed to be Surah 109. That's supposed to be the proof that he's a prophet. And we ask, what is the proof here? And it's supposedly it's so masterfully written that no human being could come up with it. It can only come from God. We read it and it's like, this is not impressive to us at all. And then you go through, but that's mistranslated. This should be translated like this. And nothing you say increases the persuasiveness of that argument, even 1%, even nothing you've said does anything to give us an indication that this must come from God because it's absolutely so amazing. So the entire point is, if that's your argument for Muhammad, that is a horrible, horrible argument. So just to recap, if you had good evidence for Muhammad, then you would say, okay, therefore accept Surah 109. That would make sense to me. Just like, okay, if you have a good reason to believe in Jesus, therefore you should believe in the words of Jesus or anything that has his stamp of approval. It would make no sense. It would make no sense to me to do what you're doing. Like, I think, again, the Sermon on the Mount, brilliant stuff. 1 Corinthians 13, brilliant stuff. Lots of things, brilliant stuff. It would never cross my mind to say, oh, wow, this is really good. Therefore, the only possible explanation is that it came from God. That would be a weird argument. But that's what you're trying to saddle us with. You're trying to say, aha, well, then you make your argument that you think is stupid. I'm not going to make an argument that I think is stupid by nature. Do you understand that, Farid? I think the entire structure of the argument, this is really well written, and therefore it must come from God. I think that entire thing is stupid. So I'm not going to argue that for the Bible. I'm not going to be a hypocrite like that. I mean, by the way, like, I can't figure this out because even non-Muslims and non-Christians will try to saddle us with the arguments that Muslims make. We've talked about this before, that Muslims will say, the Quran has been perfectly preserved right down to the letter. And we'll say, no, it hasn't. Look at these differences. And someone will say, but the Bible has differences, textual variants too. And I'm like, we're not the ones making the argument. Guys, they're the ones making the argument. It's like anytime.
Hold on, David. You have the King James version. You have the New International version. You have all these different versions. Why are there different versions, David?
I don't know. I just don't know. So Farid, I mean, I know you're impressed by rhyme and so on. So let me just say, I do not like the Quran in a house. I do not like it with a mouse. I do not like it here or there. I do not like it anywhere. Great. So now you've been refuted because I rhymed. Anything else before we close out?
Do you see the miraculousness of the eloquence in that, and how you have miraculously chosen the words, obviously inspired by a higher being? When you said house, mouse, and what did you say last?
I do not like it here or there. I do not like it anywhere.
Anywhere. See, that addresses not only the current time, but all times and all places ever possible. So this means you have just encompassed everything imaginable and dismissed all of it. This clearly shows that there is brilliance in your speech, which obviously comes from Allah. Yeah.
Yes, think about it. David used the word anywhere, which means he would not like the Quran even if he were on Mars. Even if he went to the Andromeda galaxy, he would not like it there. How could he encompass the entire universe with one single word? Only by supernatural divine eloquence. That's the only possible explanation here. Hey, why isn't anyone listening to my great argument?
Wow. That's amazing.
All right.
That is amazing.
All right. Well, I guess that's about it. Any final thoughts? Anything that have you changed your mind on the argument from literary excellence?
I wanted to say something. I forgot about it, but I wanted to make a note about that, but I forgot what it was. Allah made me forget it because I forgot to say inshallah. I don't know. I forgot.
What do we got coming up? So we definitely want to cover guys, if you haven't seen AP's new video, check it out. I've shared that on Twitter and in the community post there. And we definitely want to cover Mike Winger's video at some point in the near future, assuming it doesn't suck, which it may, because it's from it's made for the Wingalings, made for the Wingaling squad. All my Wingalings out there.
Yeah. Hey, pull up that super chat that just came in.
Allah is a mouse, you say?
No, not. Oh, this one, yeah, this one.
The Google Scholar. Hikmah, baby. Hikmah, baby, one more time.
Lives rent free in my head. Thanks, AP. Shaking my head. Yeah, that's good.
Does that mean shaking my head? I thought it meant smacking my head. I always see these things and I'm not sure what they mean.
I'm pretty sure it's shaking my head. Yeah.
Well, imagine this one thing can convey multiple meanings. How is this possible if it doesn't come from God, conveying so much meaning in 3 little letters? Powerful.
Wow. Very concise. Yeah, I don't know. I was going to say something, but I forgot. Maybe I will put it out later.
Hey, check this out. Oops. Disabled David Wuss, who got smashed by Muhammad Hijab. Muhammad Hijab, the guy who says that, according to the Quran, you can have sex with a 5-year-old. You see? What? Again, guys, I'll close out. Surah 6, 108. Don't start insulting people who are going to insult your religion in return. So, Clow, your prophet's a child molesting, murdering rapist. Wasn't going to close out with that. Oh my goodness. See that? Why do they do it? Why? I don't even know. Like, you know we have a hair trigger. They know we have a hair trigger. That was not going to happen. I was not going to close out by calling Muhammad a child molesting, murdering rapist. I wasn't going to do any of that. The Quran being ripped up was not going to happen at all.
I wasn't planning on this at all. I was just going to say stay away from Islam and then quit, but yeah.
Wow.
See?
All right.
Terrible.
Catch you all later. Stay tuned. Plenty more to come.
And stay away from Islam.
Listen to him. He already proved that he's a prophet by his brilliant poems.
Stay away from Islam. Always.
Because of his brilliant poetry.